I purchased my house 7 years ago after working hard and saving every penny. It felt like the American dream come true. When my younger brother Ryan got married to Amanda, I offered them my place at minimal rent to help them start their life together. I kept one room for myself since I travel often for business. At first, everything was perfect. Amanda seemed grateful and kind. Little did I know she would soon believe the house was rightfully theirs. Before I tell you how Amanda tried to kick me out of my own house, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from and hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever had to deal with entitled family members. Trust me, you will not believe what happens next. Growing up, I always knew the value of hard work. From mowing lawns in our neighborhood at 12 to working night shifts at a local diner through college, I never shied away from earning my keep. After graduating with a business degree, I launched my own tech consulting company. The first 3 years were brutal, often working 16-hour days and reinvesting every dollar back into the business. But by 28, my persistence paid off and my company finally started turning significant profit. I lived frugally despite my success, sharing an apartment with 2 roommates and driving my old college car until it practically fell apart. My goal was clear homeownership. When I turned 29, I had finally saved enough for a substantial down payment on a beautiful 4-bedroom house in a quiet suburb. The property had everything I wanted: a spacious yard, modern kitchen, and enough room to eventually raise a family. The day I signed those papers was the proudest moment of my life. My brother Ryan and I have always been close, despite being complete opposites. 5 years younger than me, Ryan inherited all the charm and social grace in the family. Where I was calculated and cautious with finances, Ryan lived in the moment. He bounced between jobs frequently, always chasing the next exciting opportunity rather than building something stable. Despite his flaws, I always admired his zest for life and ability to connect with people instantly. Our parents passed away in a car accident when Ryan was just 19, leaving me as his primary support system. I helped him through college financially and emotionally, considering it my responsibility as his older brother. Ryan graduated with an arts degree, but struggled to find stable employment in his field. I never minded supporting him through tough times, believing that family takes care of each other. Ryan met Amanda at an art gallery where he was temporarily working. According to him, it was love at first sight. She was a kindergarten teacher with a bright smile and energetic personality. The first time Ryan brought her to dinner at my house, I was genuinely impressed. Amanda seemed intelligent, passionate about her work with children, and appeared to truly care for my brother. She even brought a homemade apple pie that was absolutely delicious. Their relationship progressed at lightning speed. Within 6 months, Ryan called me excitedly announcing their engagement. I was surprised but happy for him. When he sheepishly admitted they wanted a quick wedding but were short on funds, I immediately offered to help. I ended up paying for nearly half of their small ceremony and the modest reception that followed. Amanda hugged me tearfully at the wedding, calling me the brother she never had. Shortly after the wedding, Ryan approached me about their living situation. They had been renting a tiny apartment that was proving too expensive on their combined incomes. Amanda wanted to start saving for their own home, but with Ryan between jobs again, it seemed impossible. I had a sudden inspiration that seemed perfect at the time. I offered them my house at a fraction of market rate rent, explaining they could stay for 2 or 3 years until they saved enough for their own place. We agreed that I would maintain my master bedroom for when I was in town, which was only about 1 week per month due to my travel schedule. Ryan was incredibly grateful, tearing up as he hugged me. Amanda seemed equally appreciative, promising they would respect my space and the arrangement would be temporary. We shook hands on these terms and I helped them move in the following weekend. The first few months were everything I hoped for. Coming home from business trips to a lively house with home-cooked meals and family conversation was wonderful after years of living alone. Amanda kept the house immaculate and often prepared dinner for all of us. Ryan seemed happier than I had seen him in years, finally landing a steady job at a local marketing firm with Amanda's encouragement. We often spent evenings playing board games or watching movies together. It felt like I had gained a sister rather than just a sister-in-law. My business continued to expand, requiring more frequent and longer trips. Sometimes I would be gone for 3 to 4 weeks at a time. I noticed subtle changes each time I returned. The first was the guest bathroom, which Amanda had completely redecorated with new towels, shower curtain, and accessories. I did not mind as it looked lovely, but I found it curious she had not mentioned it. Then the living room furniture was rearranged, followed by new curtains in the kitchen, and eventually new artwork on the walls, replacing pieces I had personally selected. One evening, after returning from a particularly long trip to Boston, I noticed my collection of travel souvenirs that had been displayed on the living room bookshelf was missing. When I asked about it, Amanda casually mentioned she had moved them to the basement storage because they did not match the new aesthetic she was creating. Ryan quickly added that they had meant to ask me but forgot. I swallowed my annoyance, reminding myself that they were making the space their home, which was natural given the circumstances. The first real friction occurred about 8 months into our arrangement. I returned home unexpectedly early from a trip when a client canceled our final meeting. The house looked different. Several family photos of my parents and childhood pictures with Ryan had been removed from the hallway and replaced with photos of Amanda and her family. The kitchen had new appliances I had never seen before, and the guest room that I occasionally used as a home office had been converted into what looked like a crafting room filled with Amanda's supplies. When Amanda arrived home from work, she seemed startled to see me sitting in the living room. Her surprise quickly transformed into what I could only describe as irritation. "Those pictures were so outdated," she explained when I asked about the missing family photos. "I put yours in a box in the attic. We needed space for our new family photos." The way she emphasized our sent a chill down my spine. When Ryan came home, I sat them both down for a conversation about boundaries. I explained that while I wanted them to feel comfortable, this was still partially my space, and significant changes should be discussed with me first. Ryan nodded understandingly, but Amanda sat stiffly on the couch, arms crossed. "I completely understand, Mark," she said with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "We should have asked. It will not happen again." But things only escalated from there. The following month, I discovered Amanda had given her parents the spare keys to my house without asking. I returned from a quick weekend trip to find her mother and father staying in my personal bedroom. My clothes had been moved to the small guest room and my toiletries relocated from the master bathroom. When I confronted Amanda, she seemed genuinely confused by my frustration. "They are family," she said dismissively. "Your room has the best guest bed, and you are not using it. I did not think you would mind." Ryan stood awkwardly beside her, clearly uncomfortable but unwilling to contradict his wife. I pulled him aside later that evening to express my concerns privately, hoping to appeal to our lifelong bond. "I feel like boundaries are being crossed," I told him. "I love having you both here, but this is still my house." Ryan ran his hand through his hair nervously. "She just gets excited about making a nice home. Her parents really needed a comfortable place to stay." "She means well, Mark." His defensive behavior that clearly made me uncomfortable was disappointing, but I let it go for the sake of peace. That night, lying in the small guest bed surrounded by craft supplies, I wondered if my generosity had been a mistake. As months passed, Amanda became increasingly territorial. She began complaining if I left personal items in common areas. My jacket on the coat rack, my books on the coffee table, even my coffee mug in the sink would trigger sighs and pointed comments about keeping shared spaces tidy. Meanwhile, her belongings spread throughout every room, her decorative touches erasing any evidence that I had ever lived there. The situation reached a new level when I overheard Amanda talking to her friend in the kitchen. They thought I was out, but I had come home early and was in my room with the door closed. "Mark still lives here, technically," Amanda was saying with obvious annoyance. "He shows up randomly and expects everything to be just like he left it. Ryan says we need to be patient, since he is giving us such cheap rent, but honestly I think it's weird that a successful 35-year-old man cannot just get his own place instead of crashing with his brother and his wife." Her friend made a sympathetic noise. "So he is like a permanent house guest you cannot get rid of." Amanda laughed. "Exactly. An unwanted roommate who thinks he owns the place." The irony of that statement left me speechless. I was not a roommate who thought he owned the place. I was the owner who was being treated like an unwelcome guest. At family gatherings, Amanda began making subtle digs about my living arrangement. "You should come visit our house," she would tell relatives, emphasizing the our. Mark stays with us sometimes when he is in town. We are helping him out since he travels so much for work. The narrative she was creating both angered and bewildered me. Somehow, in her version of reality, I was the one being helped, instead of the one providing affordable housing to them. More concerning was that Ryan never corrected these statements. He would shift uncomfortably or change the subject, but never outright clarify that the house was actually mine. Our relationship deteriorated further when Amanda started inviting her extended family for frequent visits without giving me any notice. I would return from trips to find her cousins sleeping in the living room, her aunt cooking in the kitchen, or her college friends having wine nights, all treating me like I was interrupting their time in their space. Ryan grew increasingly distant, spending more time at work or out with friends, seemingly avoiding the growing tension between his wife and brother. I began staying at hotels when in town for brief visits, only using my own house when I needed to be local for several days. The absurdity of paying for accommodation while my own property sat a few miles away was not lost on me, but it seemed easier than confronting the increasingly hostile environment Amanda had created. The distance between Ryan and me grew wider. The brother who had once shared everything with me now barely responded to my texts. When we did speak, conversations were superficial and brief. I missed our bond terribly, but felt powerless to bridge the gap without causing problems in his marriage. After about 18 months of this deteriorating situation, Ryan's 31st birthday arrived. I had been away on business for nearly 3 weeks, but arranged to return specifically for his birthday. I had not told them my exact arrival time, wanting to surprise Ryan with the limited edition guitar I had found, knowing his passion for music. When I pulled into the driveway on Saturday evening, I was surprised to see at least 20 cars parked along the street. Music pulsed from inside the house, and through the windows I could see colored lights and dozens of people milling about. I felt a pang of hurt that Ryan had planned a large celebration without mentioning it to me, especially knowing I was coming home specifically for his birthday. I entered using my key, carrying the guitar case and a bottle of Ryan's favorite whiskey. The living room had been transformed into a party space with furniture pushed aside for dancing. People I had never met filled my house, drinking from red cups and talking loudly over the music. It took several minutes of searching before I spotted Ryan near the makeshift bar in the dining room. "Mark," he exclaimed, looking genuinely happy but also surprised to see me. "I thought you were coming tomorrow. I told you I would be back for your birthday," I replied, forcing a smile despite my confusion. "Looks like quite a party." Before Ryan could respond, Amanda appeared beside him, her expression shifting from festive to cold when she saw me. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she looked at the guitar case and bottle in my hands. "Mark," she said flatly, "we were not expecting you tonight." Clearly, I replied, trying to keep my tone light despite the obvious tension. "Happy birthday, Ryan. I got you something." The awkwardness was palpable as I handed over my gifts. Ryan seemed torn between genuine appreciation and awareness of his wife's displeasure. Amanda maintained a tight smile, her hand gripping her husband's arm possessively. "Thanks so much, man," Ryan said, examining the guitar with real enthusiasm. "This is incredible." Amanda cleared her throat. "Ryan, your friends from work just arrived. You should go greet them." With an apologetic glance at me, Ryan placed the guitar carefully against the wall and moved away to welcome his other guests. Amanda remained, her arms crossed over her chest. "We have plenty of food and drinks in the kitchen," she said in a tone one might use with a casual acquaintance. "Help yourself." With that dismissal, she turned and walked away, leaving me standing alone in the middle of a party in my own home, feeling like an unwelcome stranger. Later that evening, I overheard Amanda telling some guests that I was Ryan's older brother who was between apartments and sometimes stayed with them when in town. The blatant misrepresentation of our arrangement was the final straw. I left the party early, checking into a hotel for the night too, angry and hurt to confront the situation in the middle of Ryan's celebration. In the weeks that followed, Amanda escalated her campaign against my presence. She told mutual friends I was taking advantage of their generosity. She suggested to family members that I was struggling financially and dependent on Ryan's support. Worst of all, Ryan remained silent in the face of these falsehoods, his silence becoming a tacit endorsement of his wife's narrative. The breaking point came after I returned from a 2-week business trip to Seattle. I had texted Ryan the day before to let him know I was coming home and would be staying for at least a week to handle local client meetings. He responded with a brief, "Sounds good," that gave no indication of what awaited me. When I unlocked the front door and stepped inside, the house smelled of fresh paint. Curious, I made my way upstairs to drop off my luggage in my bedroom. When I opened the door, I stopped cold in shock. My bedroom had been completely transformed. The walls were now a soft mint green instead of the navy blue I had chosen years ago. My queen-sized bed was gone, replaced by a white crib and changing table. A rocking chair sat in the corner where my desk had been, and alphabet decals decorated the wall. Every trace of my personal space had been erased. I stood frozen in the doorway, luggage still in hand, trying to process what I was seeing. The sound of footsteps on the stairs pulled me from my stupor. Amanda appeared, her expression shifting from surprise to defiance when she saw me standing in the doorway of what had been my bedroom. "Oh, you are back," she said casually, as if she had not completely violated our arrangement. "What happened to my room?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice even. Amanda placed a hand protectively over her stomach, which I now noticed showed a small but distinct baby bump. "We are expecting," she announced, with a proud smile that contrasted with the coldness in her eyes. "We needed to start preparing the nursery, and this is the best room for the baby. It gets the most natural light." I looked past her, spotting several boxes stacked in the hallway. "Those are your things," she continued, noting my gaze. "We packed everything carefully. You can take what you need now, and the rest can go to storage. The garage has some space." I felt like I had stepped into an alternate reality. "Where is Ryan?" I asked, needing to speak with my brother about this incredible overstep. "At work," Amanda replied dismissively. "Look, Mark, this was always going to happen eventually. You are barely here anyway. It does not make sense for the best room in the house to sit empty most of the time when we have a baby coming." The audacity of her statement left me momentarily speechless. This was my house. The house I had saved for years to buy. The house I had generously opened to them at a fraction of its rental value. And now, I was being informed that I no longer had a place in it. "Amanda," I finally said, "we had an agreement. You and Ryan are welcome to live here, but this is still my house, and that was still my room." Her expression darkened. "We have been living here for almost 2 years, Mark. We have made this our home while you drop in occasionally like some kind of visitor. Ryan and I are starting a family now. We need the space. I need to stay here this week for work," I explained, trying to remain calm. "Where am I supposed to sleep?" Amanda sighed dramatically. "The sofa pulls out. Or there's the small guest room, though it's a bit cramped with my craft supplies. You will manage. It is just temporary anyway until you find your own place." The assumption that I would be the one to move out of my own property was so absurd that I almost laughed, but the situation was far from funny. "I am not finding my own place," I stated firmly. "This is my place." Amanda's face flushed with anger. "Look, Mark, I have tried to be patient, but this is getting ridiculous. You are a 35-year-old man still hanging onto your brother's coattails. Ryan is too nice to say it, but I will. It is time for you to move on and let us live our lives. We have a baby coming, for goodness sake." Each word felt like a slap. The complete distortion of reality was mind-boggling. I took a deep breath, trying to maintain my composure. "Amanda, I think there's been a misunderstanding." She cut me off, her voice rising. "No, you are the one who does not understand. This arrangement might have worked when it was just Ryan and me, but we are a growing family now. You need to get your own place. It is pathetic that a grown man keeps crashing at his little brother's house because he cannot afford his own." That was the moment my patience snapped. This whole time, she had somehow convinced herself that this was their house, that I was the one being helped instead of the one providing help. The sheer entitlement was staggering. "Amanda, this is my house," I said clearly. "I own it. I bought it before you even met Ryan. You and Ryan live here because I let you at a rent well below market value to help you both out." Her eyes widened momentarily before narrowing in disbelief. "Why would Ryan pay rent to live in his own brother's house? That makes no sense." You are just making this up because you do not want to leave. Her refusal to believe the truth was astonishing. You think I am making up that I own this house? I asked incredulously. Yes, Amanda shouted, her face now flushed with anger. You are a pathetic 40-year-old leech. You have been taking advantage of Ryan's generosity for years. Get out. Get out of our house. I burst out laughing at the absurdity of her accusation. Try to make me. I challenged, my patience completely gone. Amanda's eyes flashed with rage. She pulled her phone from her pocket. Fine. I am calling the police to remove you from our property. Please do. I replied calmly, crossing my arms. I would love to show them the property deed with my name on it. She dialed anyway, reporting an intruder who refused to leave her home. I shook my head in disbelief at how completely detached from reality she had become. I walked downstairs to my briefcase and retrieved a folder containing important documents, including the deed to the house. I always traveled with these documents for security reasons, a habit that was about to prove very useful. 20 minutes later, 2 police officers arrived. Amanda greeted them at the door, tearfully explaining that her husband's brother refused to leave their home and was harassing her while she was pregnant. The officers looked at me with initial suspicion. Sir, what is your side of this situation? The older officer asked. I am Mark Taylor, I replied calmly. I am the legal owner of this property. My brother and his wife have been living here with my permission for the past 2 years. I have documentation to prove ownership. I handed over the property deed and my identification. The officers examined the paperwork carefully while Amanda watched her expression gradually shifting from righteous anger to confusion and then horror as she realized I was telling the truth. Ma'am, the officer said, finally turning to Amanda. This documentation confirms that Mr. Taylor is indeed the legal owner of this property. As the owner, he has the right to be here. Amanda shook her head in disbelief. That cannot be right. Ryan told me. She stopped, her voice faltering. Is your husband available to clear this up? The younger officer asked. As if on cue, the front door opened, and Ryan walked in freezing at the sight of police officers in the living room. His eyes darted from the officers to Amanda to me, and I could see the moment he realized what had happened. Ryan, the officer, addressed him. Do you have anything to add to this situation? My brother looked pale and shaken. The police are here because of a misunderstanding, he said quietly. Mark is the owner of this house. Amanda and I have been renting from him. Amanda gasped. What you told me, this was our house, that we were helping Mark out by letting him stay with us. Ryan's face crumpled with guilt. I never exactly said that, Amanda. I said Mark was helping us out with a place to live. I thought you understood the arrangement. The officers exchanged glances, clearly recognizing this as a family dispute rather than a police matter. Ma'am, sir, one officer said. Since Mr. Taylor is the legal property owner, he has every right to be here. This appears to be a private matter you will need to resolve among yourselves. After the police left, an explosive argument erupted. Amanda was hysterical, alternating between accusing Ryan of lying to her and me of tricking them. Ryan tried desperately to explain that he had never intentionally misled her, but admitted he had not been clear about who owned the house, allowing her assumptions to go uncorrected because he was embarrassed about our financial woes. Arrangement. I feel like such a fool, Amanda screamed, tears streaming down her face. All this time I have been living in your house, making plans for our baby in your house. Why did you never tell me, Ryan? Ryan looked utterly defeated. I was grateful for Mark's help, he admitted quietly. We could never have afforded a place like this otherwise. I was going to tell you, but then you seemed so happy making the house our own, and I did not want to disappoint you. So, what happens now? She demanded, looking between us with red-rimmed eyes. Are you going to kick us out? She directed this question at me, the hostility in her voice barely contained. I looked at my brother, seeing the fear and shame in his eyes. Despite everything, he was still my brother, and he was about to be a father. I am not kicking anyone out tonight, I said firmly. But things need to change around here. This is my house. I have one simple requirement. Respect. Respect for my property, respect for my space, and respect for me when I am here. If that is not possible, then yes, you will need to find another place to live. Amanda stormed out of the room and up the stairs. The sound of a door slamming echoed through the house, followed by audible sobbing. Ryan and I were left alone in an uncomfortable silence. "Mark, I am so sorry," he finally said, his voice breaking. "I never thought it would get this far. I should have been honest with her from the beginning." "Why were not you?" I asked, genuinely wanting to understand how we had reached this point. Ryan sank onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. "Amanda comes from a family that had nothing growing up. She has always been sensitive about appearances, about proving she has made it. When we first moved in, she was so excited about living in a beautiful house like this. I was afraid if she knew it was charity from my big brother, she would feel humiliated. That does not excuse letting her treat me like an intruder," I pointed out. "I know," Ryan admitted. "The longer it went on, the harder it became to tell her the truth. Then she started talking about starting a family, making this our forever home, and I just could not bring myself to burst her bubble. I convinced myself you would not mind since you travel so much anyway." The depth of his self-deception was staggering. "Ryan, you let your wife turn me into a villain in my own home," I said quietly. "You stood by while she packed up my belongings and took over my personal space. How could you think I would not mind?" A tear slid down his cheek. "I was weak. I was afraid of losing her if I did not give her what she wanted. I chose her happiness over your feelings, and I was wrong. I am so sorry, Mark." His admission hung in the air between us, the accumulated pain and betrayal of the past months weighing heavily on both of us. Despite my anger, I felt a twinge of compassion for my brother trapped between loyalty to his wife and to me. "You have a decision to make," I told him finally. "You and Amanda can stay here under clear boundaries that we all agree to and respect, or you can find your own place. Either way, we need to be honest with each other from now on." Ryan nodded miserably. "What about the baby?" he asked in a small voice. I sighed, feeling the anger drain out of me, replaced by a bone-deep weariness. "The nursery can stay for now. I will use the guest room while I figure out what comes next." My brother looked up, hope flickering across his tear-stained face. "Thank you. I will talk to Amanda. I will make this right somehow." As he went upstairs to his distraught wife, I stood alone in the living room of my own house, feeling simultaneously victorious and defeated. I had stood my ground, but at what cost to my relationship with my only remaining family? The following days were filled with tension and awkward encounters. Amanda avoided me completely, leaving rooms when I entered, and communicating with me only through Ryan when absolutely necessary. Ryan walked on eggshells, trying desperately to placate both his wife and me without taking a firm stand with either. I spent most of my time at client meetings, returning to the house late in the evening and leaving early in the morning to minimize contact. On the third night, I returned to find a note from Ryan saying he and Amanda were staying at her parents' house to give everyone space to think. The silence in the empty house was both a relief and a painful reminder of how much damage had been done to our family bonds. I used the solitude to reflect on my role in the situation. Had my generosity been partly to blame? By trying to help Ryan financially, had I enabled his pattern of dependency and avoidance of responsibility? The boundaries should have been clearer from the beginning, with proper documentation of our platis, arrangement rather than a handshake agreement between brothers. Perhaps most importantly, I should have addressed the small boundary violations immediately, instead of letting resentment build until explosion was inevitable. After a week of minimal communication, Ryan texted asking if we could talk alone. We met at a neutral coffee shop downtown, both of us looking tired and strained. For the first time in our adult lives, the conversation felt forced and uncomfortable. "Amanda is still pretty upset," Ryan began, staring down at his untouched coffee. "She feels humiliated about what happened with the police." "I can understand that," I replied carefully. Finding out she had misunderstood the situation so completely must have been shocking. Ryan nodded slowly. "She says she feels like our whole life together has been a lie." I felt a flash of irritation. Your wife completely redecorated my house, converted my bedroom into a nursery without permission, called the police on me, and now she's the victim." Ryan winced at my tone but did not argue. "I know it looks bad from your perspective, but Mark, she honestly believed this was our home. I never directly told her otherwise." "Why?" I asked bluntly. "Why would you let her believe that?" My brother was quiet for a long moment. "The truth," he finally said. "I was ashamed. Here I am, 31 years old, and I still need my big brother's help to afford a decent place to live. Amanda talked so much about wanting a husband who could provide, about building our future together. I wanted to be that man for her, not some charity case who could not even house his own wife properly." The raw honesty in his voice made my anger fade. Ryan had always been sensitive about living in my shadow, about measuring up to my financial success. In his misguided way, he had been trying to preserve his dignity and his wife's respect. "Amanda and I have been talking," Ryan continued. "She's calmed down enough to admit she jumped to conclusions about our living arrangement. She says some comments I made were ambiguous, and she filled in the blanks with what she wanted to believe. That was more than I had expected from the prideful woman who had called me a pathetic leech just days earlier. It's a start," I acknowledged. Ryan looked up at me, his expression serious. "We found an apartment we can afford. It's nothing like your place, but it's decent and in a safe neighborhood. We are moving out next weekend." His words hit me harder than expected. Despite everything, I had not actually wanted them to leave. "Are you sure that's what you want?" I asked. "It's what we need," Ryan replied firmly. "Amanda and I need to build our own life on our own terms without depending on anyone else. This whole situation showed us that." I nodded slowly, recognizing the wisdom in his decision even as I felt a sense of loss. "You will always have a place with me if you need it," I said. "But I think you're making the right choice." For the first time in weeks, Ryan smiled genuinely. "Thanks, Mark. That means a lot." We spent the next hour talking more openly than we had in years about our childhood, our parents, and how our relationship had changed over time. When we finally parted ways, the awkwardness had eased, replaced by a cautious optimism about rebuilding our brotherhood on healthier terms. The weekend Ryan and Amanda moved out was bittersweet. I helped load their belongings into a rented truck, working alongside Ryan while Amanda coordinated from the apartment end. She and I maintained a polite distance, exchanging only necessary communication. The nursery furniture remained in place at my insistence. I wanted them to take their time finding appropriate baby items for their new place without feeling rushed. As Ryan prepared to leave with the final load, he paused in the doorway. "You know, I never properly thanked you for everything you've done for us," he said quietly. "I took your generosity for granted, and I am sorry for that." I pulled him into a hug, feeling a knot of emotion in my throat. "You're my brother, Ryan. I would do anything for you." "I know," he replied, his voice thick. "That's why I need to do this, to become the kind of man who deserves that kind of loyalty." After they left, I walked through the quiet house that was fully mine again for the first time in years. I ran my hand along the walls Amanda had painted, looked at the curtains she had chosen, and realized I would keep most of her decorating choices. Despite everything, she had made the house feel more like a home than I ever had. The following months brought gradual healing. Ryan and I established a new tradition of weekly lunches, without Amanda giving us space to rebuild our relationship separately from the tensions of the past. He thrived in his new independence, taking on additional responsibilities at work and earning a promotion that helped their financial situation considerably. Amanda and I maintained a cordial but distant relationship. At family gatherings, we were polite to each other but rarely engaged in direct conversation. I respected the boundaries of their new life, and she seemed to have accepted the reality of our past arrangement without lingering resentment. The true turning point came when their son was born. Standing in the hospital room holding my tiny nephew while Ryan beamed proudly beside me, the remaining hurt and anger melted away. This new life represented a fresh start for all of us, a chance to build something better than what we had broken. Ryan and Amanda named their son Michael after our father. When they asked if I would be his godfather, I accepted without hesitation, seeing it as an olive branch and a new beginning. The first time Amanda willingly handed the baby to me, meeting my eyes with a small but genuine smile, I knew we had all grown from the painful experience in ways that ultimately made us stronger. In the end, I learned that helping others requires wisdom as well as generosity. True kindness means empowering people to stand on their own, not creating dependency that undermines their dignity. I learned that clear boundaries are not selfish but necessary for healthy relationships. Most importantly, I learned that family bonds can bend under tremendous pressure without completely breaking, and that forgiveness, while difficult, opens the door to deeper understanding and connection. Today, Ryan and Amanda own their own modest home, purchased with minimal help from me. Ryan runs a successful marketing department, and Amanda has returned to teaching part-time. My relationship with my brother is stronger than ever, built on honesty and mutual respect rather than obligation and dependency. I still travel frequently for business, but I make time to visit my nephew, regularly delighting in his growth and the knowledge that our family has overcome its greatest challenge. Have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with loved ones? How did you balance generosity with self-respect? Drop a comment below to share your experience, and do not forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. Remember that setting boundaries is not selfish. It is an act of self-care that ultimately benefits everyone involved. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps someone navigating similar family challenges. Until next time, take care of yourself and those you love, but never at the expense of your own well-being.